Hey guys, hope everyone is doing very, very well. Welcome back to Wrestle News 365. Hope you're all having a good Thursday. Now, of course, it's the day after WWE NXT and AEW Dynamite. So, as always, there is a ton of news stories to get into. I mean, there is more than usual even today. So let's get straight into the news stories. First, let's talk about Goldberg. Yes, Goldberg. We're going to talk about Goldberg because it looks like we have some plans when it comes to WrestleMania and plans for Goldberg at WrestleMania, or at least plans for Goldberg and Roman Reigns shortly, because WWE Hall of Famer Bill Goldberg has said that the current WWE Universal Champion himself, Roman Reigns, is indeed next. Now, Goldberg appeared on WWE's The Bump on Wednesday morning to promote his new WWE Untold documentary, which premieres on the WWE Network this coming weekend. It's all about his streak in WCW. Now, host Kayla Braxton asked Goldberg about appearing in the WWE Thunderdome back on the in October for SmackDown on Fox, the season premiere, they called it at the time. What season it is, I have no idea. When Roman Reigns retained over Braun Strowman for the Universal Championship. And that's when he confirmed, he being Goldberg, that he has unfinished business with the tribal chief. He said, quote, "Oh, I would say that is one of the most mild understatements that I've ever heard. He backed out on me at WrestleMania, he stole my mood God knows how long ago, and he continues to perform it at subpar levels. Let's be perfectly honest, I'm the dude who delivers the spear, and I don't think he understands what it's like until I deliver one to him. So Roman, it's coming, and I'm coming for you. I may be old, I may be grey, but I'm still Goldberg." Goldberg later ended the interview with his signature warning, "Thank you guys and girls, as always it's my privilege, and who's next? Roman is next." Now of course Goldberg has not wrestled since WrestleMania 36 earlier this year, where he lost the Universal Championship to Braun Strowman in just over 2 minutes. Yes, 2 minutes, we'll touch on that in a second. He did reveal earlier this year he is still under contract to WWE until 2023, and he has 2 matches per year on that deal. He noted that he already used up his 2 matches for 2020, but that could mean Goldberg could return, and it's looking like he will return next year at some point to face off against Roman Reigns, whether that's at the Royal Rumble or WrestleMania. We'll just have to wait and see. Now, Roman Reigns has responded to this as well. Reigns took to Twitter and tweeted, quote, "I never wait in line, I am the attraction, and I choose who's next." And that's Kevin Owens. Hashtag WWE TLC, hashtag Island of Relevancy. Easy for me to say. So, like everyone else, I was horrified when I saw this because it just confirmed the worst fears. We spoke about this back in October. They touched on it on The Bump, that Goldberg appeared in the Thunderdome for that season premiere episode of SmackDown when Reigns defeated Braun Strowman. And he put on Instagram, I have unfinished business with Roman Reigns. Of everything that's happened this year and of everything that's been taken away because of the current climate that we're in, whether it's fans, certain matches, certain runs in WWE, or superstars getting released, all the bad stuff that's happened. The one thing that I don't think anyone cared about that we didn't see was Roman Reigns versus Goldberg. No one went, "Oh, I'm so annoyed we didn't get to see Roman Reigns Goldberg." Nobody has said that. Nobody. Because it wasn't anything. It was not anything. It was never going to be anything. It was going to be what actually happened at WrestleMania 36 anyway, but just swap out Braun Strowman for Roman Reigns. That's what it was going to be. And except in a stadium full of people, which would then probably have booed and been annoyed by the situation, or maybe happy because Goldberg would have lost in 2 minutes. Nobody wants to see it. Nobody wants to see it. Apart from Vince McMahon, obviously. Vince McMahon has done such a U-turn when it comes to Goldberg in WWE. It's actually kind of crazy. Honestly, it's crazy. This is a guy who, for years after Goldberg's run in 2003 to 2004, hated Bill Goldberg. He hated him with a passion. When there were negotiations for Mike Goldberg from the UFC to come over and be the play-by-play guy for Monday Night Raw, Vince McMahon wanted to change the guy's last name because he hated Bill Goldberg. Fast forward now, and Goldberg's a man in his 50s. He's like 53 years old, and Vince McMahon is obsessed with this man. So much so that he's on this giant contract for 2 matches per year, and every single match lasts about 2 minutes or 3 minutes. Where is the value at this point? Where is the value? This is what I tweeted out yesterday. Where is the value of Bill Goldberg at this point in WWE? I know people will say, wow, he's still an attraction, and to the mainstream audience and casual wrestling fans. But even the casual fans, right, if they see, oh, Bill Goldberg, right, I remember him from WCW, I remember him from the Monday Night Wars, I'll tune in to see him face Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. When they do tune in, they'll be disappointed because the match will last 2 minutes. Goldberg will lose because he's not beaten Roman Reigns. If he does, it's up there with beating The Fiend in 3 minutes of Super Showdown, which should have never happened earlier this year. Thank God The Fiend was able to recover, but it was a massive dent to him, and has he fully recovered? We'll have to wait and see. Only time will tell with that one. So Goldberg isn't going to beat Roman Reigns. He'll lose again in 2-3 minutes. He'll get this ginormous payday, and then he'll leave, and then maybe come back later on in the year if they do a Saudi show. That's Goldberg. That is what his value is at this point. But again, his value is, oh, the casual fan. The casual fan will tune in. The casual fan will see, oh, Goldberg, I'll tune in at WrestleMania. But the analogy I always use for this kind of thing is great. You've got them in the door. You've got them in the door to watch WrestleMania. It's like opening up a restaurant, right? This restaurant has a grand opening. You have all these people coming. They're lining up down the block to try your meal, try your product. They come in. You get all these people through the door, and then you serve them the worst meal of their life. They don't come back. They don't come back. So again, this is what baffles me with this kind of deal. They go, well, he's still a big draw. He's still a big draw. People will tune in to see him. People will buy the network or subscribe to the network to see him. Yeah, and then they'll be annoyed because it was crap and they'll never come back. Where is the value? Even from a storyline point of view, where is the value of Bill Goldberg at this point? He lost to Braun Strowman in 2 minutes. At WrestleMania, he was destroyed by him. Roman Reigns easily beat Braun Strowman on SmackDown at Payback. So where's the narrative there? There is no narrative, there is no storyline, and no one wants to see it. No one wants to see it. So like everyone else, as soon as I saw Goldberg go, well, you're next, everyone went, oh, really? You know, no one was going, oh, you know what, I'm so disappointed. Not only WrestleMania, it wasn't in the stadium. We didn't have the fans there. It wasn't live. It was no fans at the Performance Center, blah, blah, blah. No one went, oh, and the biggest thing, we didn't see Goldberg versus Reigns. Man, I hate this shit. Everyone went, wow, if anything, a positive casualty there of not having that at WrestleMania. I mean, honestly, it's just ridiculous. But like I said, Vince McMahon, for whatever reason, is obsessed with Bill Goldberg, a man in his 50s who is, I mean, he was green when he was in WCW. He admits he's green. His body is broken down to the more. You have to remember, this is a guy that only went into pro wrestling because his pro football career ended through injury. So he's hardly, you know, the picture of health. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. So let's move on because I don't want to talk about it anymore. Let's talk about Karrion Kross because Karrion Kross has returned to NXT last night. Last night's episode of NXT on the USA Network saw Karrion Kross attack former North American champion Damian Priest from behind as Priest was headed to the ring to confront Austin Theory and the new North American champion Johnny Gargano. Kross destroyed Priest on the stage and left him laying near a production area. He then walked right to the parking lot and got into his car where Scarlett was waiting for him. They sped away as NXT went to commercial. Now this return by Karrion Kross was actually set up earlier on in the show during the opening segment with NXT champion Finn Balor. Finn Balor returned to NXT and cut a promo about being back, but was interrupted by the likes of Damian Priest, Pete Dunne and Kyle O'Reilly. Then he was interrupted by Scarlett, who came up to confront Balor on the stage, but before she could speak, Balor cut her off and said to give a message to Kross that when he's ready to return, Balor is ready to face him. Priest then insulted Scarlett and Kross from the ring as she looked on and smiled. This obviously sets up the attack later on in the show. Scarlett walked off as the camera focused on the Kross logo on the big screen. Now, WWE hasn't confirmed when Karrion Kross is going to return to the ring. It would appear that when he does return to the ring, he's going to be facing Damian Priest. Great to see Karrion Kross back. Of course, he's been out of action since suffering a separated shoulder during his NXT Championship victory over Keith Lee at TakeOver 30 in August during SummerSlam weekend. He had to relinquish the NXT Championship on the following episode of NXT on August 26 and has been off TV since that night. Now, of course, as well, a vignette for the return of Karrion Kross did air Sunday at the NXT TakeOver War Games 2020 event, but it's great to see Karrion Kross back. He's one of the biggest names on the NXT brand. Horrible what happened to him. You know, he's got a monster push and he separates his shoulder. He has to vacate the championship the following night. Just awful circumstances. I'm glad to see him back. I'm surprised he's going straight after Damian Priest. I understand that Priest insulted Scarlett earlier on in the show, so the storyline makes sense from that point of view. I just would have thought the logical narrative is for him to go straight after Finn Balor. Maybe they're building up to that first. Maybe we know we have the NXT New Year's Evil show coming up which we'll touch on in a second. Maybe Kross does face Balor then. Maybe he has a match against Damian Priest in the meantime, which then transitions into a championship match against Finn Balor. Personally, I'd get the title right back on Karrion Kross. I know Finn Balor hasn't really had an opportunity to defend it that much because of his broken jaw. The push was working for me when it came to Karrion Kross, and it would be harsh on Finn Balor if you just lost the title straight away, but we'll wait and see. We'll wait and see. Nevertheless, the most important thing is that Karrion Kross is back, and I'm excited to see what develops for him in the future on NXT. So speaking of NXT, let's stick with NXT here, and we spoke about New Year's Evil, and we do have no official matches announced for New Year's Evil, but it's been announced that the NXT champion Finn Balor will defend his championship on that night. Balor noted on NXT last night that it was up to NXT General Manager William Regal to determine who he faces on that night. Based on the opening segment, as I mentioned, that we saw, it could be Finn Balor facing Karrion Kross, Damian Priest, Pete Dunne, or Kyle O'Reilly, or a combination of them all. We'll have to wait and see. I'm sure that will play out in the coming weeks. But it's big for Finn Balor to be back on NXT. It's big for Karrion Kross to come back in NXT. That NXT Championship picture is looking a bit stronger. That main event scene is looking a bit stronger. And it's felt a bit odd not really to have Finn Balor on the show that much recently, as he's the NXT Champion. I felt that was a bit of a takeaway from War Games on Sunday. Yes, the War Games matches were great, but it felt like just a show as to no real progression on the show, especially when it comes to the NXT Championship, because it wasn't defended. Nevertheless, that main event scene in NXT looks to be expanding now, so I'm happy to see that. Now let's switch over to the Wednesday Night War rivals in AEW and talk about Sting, because Sting spoke on Dynamite last night. After making his surprise debut on last week's edition of AEW Dynamite, Sting returned to speak with Tony Schiavone. Now, it wasn't the segment that they kind of advertised, because in actuality, it was Cody and Arn Anderson in the ring talking to Schiavone, and then Sting interrupted them. Now, during the segment as well, when Sting was talking, in the stands, in the rafters, very eerily similar to Sting in WCW, sat AEW TNT champion Darby Allin, who was looking on. We'll touch on that in a second. Now, Cody attempted to make it known that he had waited a long time to be in the ring with Sting. The newly signed legend, the Icon, the former WCW champion and the WWE Hall of Famer, mentioned that he wasn't here for Cody Rhodes. He then made it clear, pointing up to Darby Allin, who was in the stands, that's who Sting is looking at right now. Sting said the only thing that is for sure about Sting, as he's mentioned several times, is that nothing is for sure. He mentions being signed with AEW, and he said he plans on being close to the promotion for a long time. Sting says how he chooses to play, that's his business. He then pulls Cody in and said, "See you around, kid." Cody looked a bit annoyed how Sting may have disrespected him there. I love this segment. I thought it was really well done. There has been this sort of narrative over the years, hasn't there, that Sting isn't an unbelievable promo. That's probably the thing that's lacking. I thought he was great. I thought he was absolutely great. Maybe it's just the feeling of having Sting back on TNT, feeling back home, as it were, right now. I thought it was great. I really enjoyed the segment. I enjoyed the see you around, kid. It's the little details as well. They kind of gave Cody like, not a headbutt, but a bit of a nudge. And you got a bit of the face paint on the head. And just that kind of shifted things as well. I don't know. I thought it was great. And I'm all in, pun intended, for a Sting and Darby Allin mentor relationship kind of deal. I think that's fantastic. There was a vignette earlier on in the night as well where Darby Allin was looking at ink blot tests as well. And one of them was Sting. And he just smiled. It's obvious to me that Sting and Darby Allin are going to be paired up. It has to be. That's the direction that they're going in. If not, I suppose there could be a swerve. That could be the direction that they're going with that. But I just don't see the merit in that. So I'm all in for this Sting and Darby Allin. It just works. It just absolutely works. So I'm super excited for that. Next, let's talk about Kenny Omega and Don Callis, because Kenny Omega, the new AEW World Champion, along with his manager, the Executive Vice President of Impact Wrestling, Don Callis, spoke last night on AEW Dynamite. Of course, last week, with the help of Don Callis, Kenny Omega won the AEW World Championship last week against Jon Moxley. They then followed that up with an appearance on Impact Wrestling on Tuesday, but on last night's show on Dynamite, Don Callis and Kenny Omega arrived in style in a helicopter outside Daily's place, eventually making their way to the ring. Now, Don Callis kind of repeated the same thing, really, that was spoken on Impact Wrestling on Tuesday, that he'd watched Kenny Omega for years, and he's watched the new champion grow into the performer the wrestler and the man that he is today, and Kenny Omega essentially gloated about his match against Jon Moxley. They teased this big announcement that they teased on Impact on Tuesday, but Don Callis said, they can't handle it, and told him to hold off for now. But before leaving, Kenny Omega did his signature goodbye and good night sign off. It was odd. It was odd. It was the same promo essentially from Impact on Tuesday, and I know some people were maybe a little bit disappointed with that, and some people certainly were disappointed that this big announcement was teased and we didn't get anything from that. And I kind of agree with that. It does. I criticize WWE when they do the same. We're going to have a big announcement, and then they come out and they don't do the announcement. They go, we'll wait for next week. And you go, that's just BS. It's false advertising. So I totally understand people's disappointment with that. Obviously the reaction to that could be, he's a heel, they're just being heels. It's frustrating. It did feel like, I don't want to say a nothing segment, but it did kind of feel like, nothing happened that we hadn't already known or we hadn't already seen when it comes to Impact on Tuesday. So I guess maybe it's just to keep people guessing. I don't know. Maybe I'm defending it a little bit too much there. I feel like I am. I enjoyed the promo. Kenny Omega's fully a heel. He's full cleaner. Absolutely, he's cleaner now. I thought Don Callis' introduction promo of Kenny Omega was good as well. I like the name, the Invisible Hand. I like the storyline. I like the working relationship between Impact and AEW. I'm all in on that. As far as the promo though in the segment, it just felt weird. I enjoyed it. But I can understand people's frustration with it. Don't tease a big announcement and then not deliver. That is kind of, I don't know, it just doesn't feel right, does it? It just doesn't feel right. But speaking of AEW, we have an update when it comes to AEW's schedule for the remainder of the month and into 2021, because AEW Dynamite has announced its upcoming TV schedule during the holiday season. It's noted that the NBA had a game slotted during Dynamite's usual time on December 23, but Dynamite will now air at 10 p.m. Eastern Time or immediately after the game. From previous experience when they had the playoffs over the summer, that is a waiting game because it can start at any time. The games can overrun. Several times they've overrun. Or they'll end and then they just go straight to Dynamite. It's a waiting game, so considering it's the 2 days before Christmas as well, I don't expect that to do a big number unless they have a good follow-in from the NBA. I don't know, but it's a difficult one. I think that's why they tested out the whole late-night Dynamite situation for that very reason, to maybe try and see if the audience is there and kind of condition them to, you can stay up and watch AEW. We'll have to wait and see with that. They've also announced that on December 30 and January 6, AEW will hold a two-night event called New Year's Smash. Night 1 will feature Chris Jericho on commentary, while Night 2 will feature special guest Snoop Dogg. Of course, Snoop Dogg, you might think, he's got a strong relationship with WWE. Why is he appearing for AEW? But of course, he's on that TNT, what's it called? The Big Show something? I don't know what it is, with CODY. So that's why. When it comes to these TNT relationships, they kind of tend to appeal on all of these programmings. Hence why SHAQ is with AEW, because he signed a contract with TNT. I don't think Snoop Dogg has a contract with TNT per se. Possibly he does, I don't know. But he's on the same show as Cody Rhodes, so it makes sense to have that crossover. Now, no matches have been announced for either show yet. What I will say when it comes to Snoop Dogg, obviously, famously, over the last week or so, he was on commentary during the whole Mike Tyson pay-per-view thing, if I'm correct. So it would be cool to see him on commentary again for one match. That would be fun. Snoop Dogg's a big pro wrestling fan. His passion is up there when it comes to celebrity fans, so it would be cool to see him on the show. Does that get him heat with WWE? We'll have to wait and see. Snoop Dogg did an Instagram Live with The Undertaker a couple of weeks ago, hyping up Survivor Series, of course, The Undertaker's final farewell. That was a lot of fun to watch. I would highly recommend, if you can go find it, it's probably on his IGTV, on his Instagram profile. It is a lot of fun to watch. See The Undertaker talking to Snoop Dogg. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Will it get him heat with WWE? I don't know. Will it get Sasha Banks heat in WWE? Probably not. It's probably a contractual commitment. If you sign a deal with TNT, or if you appear on a TNT show, you kind of have to go to their pro wrestling, and Snoop Dogg's a pro wrestling fan, so that makes sense. The interesting thing, of course, is that Night 2, the January 6th show, does now clash with NXT's TV special, the New Year's Evil show. Previously, we knew that AEW was going to have a special on December 30. We didn't know it was going to be a two-night deal going into January, which now clashes with NXT New Year's Evil. So I guess AEW have counter-programmed WWE for the first time, because usually it's WWE reacting to AEW's events, but this time it's vice versa. So it'll be very interesting. It's always interesting when they have these TV specials as to who does better. When they're unrivaled, when there's no real opposition on the other side wins. When they go up head-to-head, It's interesting because it's actually quite competitive. Not in the demographics, not in the things that matter, but in total viewership, WWE NXT does have a good They do have quite a good record when it comes to these TV specials. So it'll be certainly interesting to see with that. Now let's stick with Dynamite and what happened last night, specifically MJF, because MJF defeated Orange Cassidy last night to win the AEW Dynamite Diamond Ring for the second time in a row. On last night's show, we had the finals of the Dynamite Diamond Ring. I don't know if you call it a tournament. The previous week, Orange Cassidy and MJF were the final two in the Dynamite Diamond Battle Royal to advance to this week's singles match. The winner of tonight's bout would then be the holder of the Dynamite Ring for another year. Now, after with the Inner Circle, and numerous AEW stars at ringside, MJF was able to pick up the victory over Orange Cassidy. A massive brawl broke out, causing the referee to get distracted. Then Miro ran out to the ring and dropped Orange Cassidy with a big lariat, which allowed MJF to get the pinfall victory. Of course, Miro has been feuding with the Best Friends and Orange Cassidy. Now, after the match, an even bigger brawl broke out because Miro basically went insane and destroyed everyone, including production staff. He threw a production member off the stage. Nice to see Miro get this more aggressive side. Nice to get him get featured. I still don't like the gimmick for him in AEW. I don't like the whole... Not that I don't like the Kip Sabian pairing. It just doesn't feel needed at this point. And I know Tony Khan said in interviews we need to rehabilitate Miro because he was treated so badly in WWE. I don't subscribe to that narrative. I think everyone knows the talent of Miro. I don't think he needs to be built back up in AEW. I think he's built up just completely fine. So I don't subscribe to that. I enjoyed the aggression from him, but I'm surprised MJF won it again. Just the fact that I thought to establish the prestige in this, they wouldn't have him win it a second year in a row. It's another accomplishment for MJF. I don't know if Orange Cassidy, I suppose, would have been the right guy to win that. It doesn't seem very in character, him walking around with a giant diamond ring on his finger, does it? That just seems really bizarre and strange. So maybe MJF was the right guy. I don't know. I guess that goes back to picking those two guys to be the final two in the Battle Royal last week. I don't know. It would surprise me that MJF won it 2 years in a row. What I will say when I talk about this, because it is certainly an issue for AEW, can we do without the massive brawls? We have at least one massive brawl on Dynamite every week. It felt like we had a couple on this show. I understand you want to try and play up... I mean, Dynamite wasn't even live last night, but they want to play up, chaos, anything can happen, or all of these factions we've got in the company, they're always brawling, they're always at each other's necks. I'm just kind of over this whole, we'll end the match with a brawl, or this segment ends with a brawl because they can't find a good way just to transition out of it into the next segment, or they can't find a good way to end it. Everything doesn't need a brawl. It can be overkill, and it kind of felt like that. Like I said, it just feels like every week on Dynamite, at least one segment ends in this big brawl. And I suppose when you have just so many factions in the company, that's maybe the direction you have to go in. I don't know. I just don't think it's needed. Speaking of AEW Dynamite last night, we saw the first appearance by SHAQ on AEW television when Tony Schiavone spoke with SHAQ and Brandi Rhodes on last night's AEW Dynamite. Now, during the segment, Brandi's arm was in a sling after being attacked by Jade Cargill a few weeks back. She was hoping they could kind of work things out so nobody else got hurt. Now, SHAQ said he had a lot of love for the Rhodes family and would be happy to see Brandi and Jade in the ring. SHAQ then, I don't know, they're saying that SHAQ insulted Brandi. He just said, maybe you want to learn some tips from her, and then Brandi Rhodes threw a glass of water on him. I've got to say, I thought that Brandi Rhodes came across horrifically in this segment. I don't know if that was the intention. I really don't know. I felt like this whole deal was trying to play up like the storyline, especially with Jade Cargill and Brandi Rhodes on TV and the attacks and Jade Cargill interrupting Cody Rhodes. I felt like the idea here was to have SHAQ and Jade Cargill as the heels going up against Cody and Brandi Rhodes in a mixed tag. Brandi Rhodes came off like a total heel. A total heel. Tony Schiavone introduces Brandi Rhodes, calls her the chief brand officer. Then he introduces SHAQ, runs down all of his accomplishments, and she's like, oh, you introduced all of his accomplishments, blah, blah, blah. And you just said, I'm the chief brand officer. Well, what do you want to say? What have you achieved? What have you achieved in pro wrestling? Your chief brand officer is probably your biggest accomplishment. What else is there to say? Chief brand officer and former announcer for ECW on WWE TV. I mean, realistically, what? There is no big achievement. SHAQ is one of the most recognizable sports names ever. He is a very successful man. He is all over TNT. He is on the board of directors for Papa John's. I mean, there is a lot of accomplishments to build up there. So I didn't get that. And then at the end, she's like, you're being disrespectful to me, saying I could learn some tips from her. I mean, the person broke your arm a couple of weeks ago. Maybe you could learn some tips from her. And then throws the water in his face. I just came off watching that going, man, Brandy Rhodes, I mean, she just came across as a total heel. I felt sorry for SHAQ. I thought he was being respectful. Maybe I'm wrong. I just don't know. I thought the whole idea of this storyline was to have SHAQ and Jade Cargill be the heels. Certainly not after that promo. Brandy Rhodes came across terribly. Terribly. It was bizarre. It was absolutely bizarre. Let's switch back to WWE, because there was a WWE meeting held yesterday in Stamford, Connecticut. This is according to PW Insider. Now, most of the meeting was focused on introducing President and Chief Revenue Officer Nick Khan, who was hired back in early August. Employees were introduced to Khan and told more about him and why he came to the company, his role, etc. Employees were also told that the new location for the company HQ in Stamford, Connecticut is moving along slowly but surely. It was announced in March of 2019 that WWE had planned to move its global headquarters to a new office complex in downtown Stamford, not far from the current location which the offices sit now. The company plans to make the move in early 2021. The move will allow WWE to bring together its operations, including its production studios and corporate offices, putting everything under one roof. WWE also mentioned that Sanjay Dutt is now working full-time for the NXT brand. Dutt is now listed as a trainer at the WWE Performance Center website, along with Steve Armstrong and Ace Steel. Steel was originally hired as a coach in November 2019, but he was furloughed in April this year due to the pandemic budget cuts. He returned to work, though, in mid-October. WWE, of course, hired Sanjay Dutt to work as a producer back in 2019 after he left Impact Wrestling, and at one point was working with talents on the main roster. Now, finally, what we want to talk about today is WrestleMania. Of course, as we head closer and closer to 2021, we talk about WrestleMania, the road to WrestleMania, the Royal Rumble, etc. Well, the reputable WrestleVotes has tweeted out yesterday a very interesting update when it comes to the WrestleMania card, saying that we're going to get an update as to what currently the plans are for the WrestleMania card going forward. They tweeted out, quote, WrestleMania card update coming at some point tomorrow, which is today. I'm hesitant to even post, as I'm sure the comments will start rolling in and people need to realize I have no control over anything they do or don't do. However, stand by. This kind of fills me with dread and terror. The fact that he's, or she, I don't know, they have to warn us about how bad potentially this could be, says to me that it doesn't look good in their point of view. And in fairness, like I said, one, they're incredibly reputable. Two, they're pretty in touch with the pulse of what fans want to see and what fans don't or do like. The fact that they're kind of warning us, it doesn't look good at the moment, says to me, Goldberg. We started on Goldberg, we'll finish on Goldberg. That's one. I dread to think how bad it could be if they're worried about it. I honestly dread to think because, man, if they're worried about the reaction, who knows how bad this could be? So I suppose at this point I'm morbidly curious. I'm morbidly curious to see, I mean, how bad the plans are. Maybe the fact that these plans could be coming out and the negative reaction to them may actually spur on WWE to make some changes. I don't know, but that could be interesting when that news comes out. Of course, when it does come out, we'll do a video on it. We'll probably post that in the news video tomorrow. But of course, as always, this is just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on all of the news stories we presented today here in this video? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply. Get involved in the community here on the channel. It's growing rapidly. Love interacting with you guys. Love seeing you guys interact with each other. There's no opinions that are right or wrong on this channel. We're just talking about pro wrestling, what we love to watch, what we're fanatical about. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button. Really does help us out here on YouTube. Go up the rankings and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to WrestleNews 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now. Or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video, along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. And I'll speak to you again very, very soon. Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.